So I haven't played Fleet, but I will tell you what I have played. Your buddy, the Brandt, who is probably the biggest, cheerleader for Fleet the Dice game, cornered me and Alex Goldsmith at Gen Con last year. And he's like, you got to play Fleet the Dice game. So we sat down and played it. I loved it, man. I'm telling you.
Thank you.
You have a little signature. You always call them disappointingly mathy games. There's a lot of math in that game. But I told people after I played it, I said, I played a lot of roll and writes. And, most of the roll and writes that's what they are. They're roll and writes. They don't feel like a board game. They feel like a roll and write. That's what they feel like. Yours did not feel like that. And that's a compliment. It felt like I was playing a board game, not a roll and write. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, it 100%. I mean, and Brandt is awesome, by the way. I second that.
Yes.
And
I love the Brandt.
I do too. So we didn't consciously decide that Fleet the Dice game was going to be different than other roll and writes. I think we knew we wanted to do a dice game of Fleet, and we knew that we had an opportunity. Again, Eagle Griffin's done quite a few of our games, and they're very open to the idea. And again, because Fleet has continued to sell over the years, it was a good opportunity to, it's to kind of reuse that thematic license and some of the ideas that we have in Fleet in a new way. So we set out to make Fleet the Dice game. We had a few ideas. We kind of did it really slowly. Never really got anywhere. And then one day Ben kind of came. We worked together in our real life jobs, and then also we've been friends since we were kids. So we talk all the time, text and messenger work, whatever. So he said, hey, I got this thing. And it's Fleet the Dice game, and it's a roll and write. I'm like, a roll and write. I'd played a couple. They're okay.
Say it.
It's a game. They're games.
Ding! I told Dan I would ding if you ever said that during the show.
So they're not like I don't get to game a ton. Like I really, we game probably once every 2 weeks. As far as like, and if I'm going to play a game, I want to play a game. Right? I want to play Rococo, as Beth mentioned earlier. I want to play something that I can get into a little bit. So my filler gaming isn't very often. So playing Quicks and some of those other ones, they're okay. I played Gauntron Clever, and I liked it. I thought the app was awesome because you could play it in like 20 seconds.
You can, yeah.
But I didn't. Either way, all that to say, and they showed me this like literally, it's like a friggin' it was like a sheet of paper. I think it was literally like this big, and it was just I'd call it a spreadsheet if I was being a little honest. And it was like he had the original idea of zone of boats. Was kind of like the Fleet part, like you're gonna catch fish on boats and you're gonna have licenses, and then it was sort of like insert good idea here on the other side. So we just began hacking away at it, and got the idea to kind of put in the market and sort of those different individual buildings inside, the town, and then the wharf is kind of like another set of boats that do different things. And right away, he had the idea. I think one of the things that he came to the idea was that he wanted to do. The whole point was we're going to take the cards in Fleet and put them on the dice, right? So I think at first we might have had more than just fish symbols. It was like also some money and some other things. We slowly kind of stripped that away as we developed it, honestly, because frankly, there was enough going on without having two other symbols on each die. So it was just to really take the cards in Fleet, stick them on dice, and see what happens. And it really all came down to that original, again, kind of jokingly flowchart that Ben came up with that represented the licenses and the boats to catch fish. So that's kind of what got us going.
I wouldn't say spreadsheet, although I was a little worried as the Brandt was teaching us. The hall monitor came in and said, we only have 3 hours to complete the test, and we had to keep our pencil in the circles.
Yeah,
so
it's
no, but in all seriousness, my favorite part is the dice choosing mechanic, I guess is how you would call it.
Yeah.
So maybe tell the chat crew how is that? Where did that come from? I've kind of seen it in other areas before, but I like the way you guys did it with Fleet the Dice game.
Yeah, I don't remember if that was an original idea or if that's one of those. Sometimes we literally just so we call it the Feld, which is the acquisition mechanic usually, right? Because like a lot of Feld games are like Trajan. I love Trajan. Coming to that later. I don't want to give anything away, but
Steve, did you hear that? Mark that down.
It's 6 individual zones that have barely anything to do with each other, all tied together by the fact that you're playing Mancala, right? So the Feld is the thing that basically drives you to, your action selection, or is you kind of jokingly what we call it. So I know from originally we wanted to do dice drafting, so it was more a matter of how to do it in a way that made sense for what Fleet the Dice game was. Now what we found very early on when we were designing that one is that there was so much going on those 2 score pads that we probably needed to keep the dice draft relatively simple.
Okay.
So we did.
Makes sense.
And that was really kind of the genesis of the idea that we're going to do everyone pick a die and the leftover die everyone gets to use. And that sort of idea behind the leftover die was really one of 2 things, honestly. Part of it was just mechanically to speed things up a little bit, we're not playing 15 rounds, right? Because you're getting another action every round.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
And that's the mechanical reason. But also we wanted to have that tension that comes with being that player 3 or 4 times throughout the game where you're like, okay, well, I want that, especially in a 2-player game, frankly, right? I want that. She wants that, he wants that, and then so it's not just take what's best for you. It's also take what you think's going to make the most sense, for you to take by yourself. Then it's going to help others the least. Not quite hate drafting, but the idea of sort of, because for the most part, Please the Dice game is 1, 2, 3, head down for 45 minutes. There's not like, it's not an interactive game in the sense that you're caring what people are doing. But that exactly. So that was we wanted to have that interaction where you were affecting the outcome of other players. So your score sheet's not, but right? Please the Dice game?
Yeah. So is there anything coming out? Anything you can tell us? Anything new with that?
Absolutely. So it was very successful, honestly. It sold incredibly well, and it's been our highest rated game until recently. Actually, we've got one of our newer games is staying ahead of it, but it's got less ratings. But obviously critically successful. It sold very quickly. Took a long time to get reprinted, which is not my decision. It's finally coming again, the second printing with the mini expansion in November. So when Eagle Griffin did the new version of Rococo with the Ian O'Toole art, they also included Fleet the Dice game second printing, which has a couple of small changes to the score sheets. Just nothing like significant from a rules perspective, but really kind of just clearing things up a little bit with like Lobster, for example, and just a few small, kind of more graphic design than gameplay, except for Lobster. Lobster, we did adjust how Lobster worked to make it a little bit easier. And then also some graphic design stuff to kind of clean up a few of the questions that we got a lot. And then it included a expansion, which is another pad that sits next to your 2 pads. So you got 2 pads plus the expansion pad. And that's a whole thing that riffs off of. So one of the actions in the game that got used the least, and purposefully, was the pass action, right? We gave you the idea that when you didn't want something, because let's say shrimp was left and you just weren't doing shrimp, and so it's round 6 and you're not going to get into the shrimp game, we gave you a coin for it. And we have a building in the wharf that lets you turn it into 2 coins, which is a fine little building. So we riff off of that basically, and you can then use that pass action instead of as a coin to basically unlock things on this now 3rd score pad that gives you just all sorts of new bonuses. And it's very much fits in this, and kind of, it's for people that have played Fleet. I feel awful if anyone has to play Fleet the first time with that in it, because that's not a good thing. I'm telling everybody now, please let the new guy or the new girl play Fleet by itself and then add the expansion, because it's just more, right? We don't,
you're talking about Fleet the Dice game.
Yeah, Fleet the Dice game. Sorry.
Yeah. Sure.
No, I just mean it's one of those things where sometimes people put the expansions in for new players. I'm like, come on, let them experience the game first. But I'm joking. But it really is just more. It's just, that's kind of what we wanted to do with an expansion for Fleet the Dice game. We gave you 2 score pads, and now you got a 3rd.
We're going to be looking for that, and that's Fleet the Dice game.